Welcome to the show. How are you? Oh my goodness, we had a sound problem all throughout that. Oh man.
We're back.
Oh, that's terrible. Holy cow, I just saw that. That's crazy. Well, there you go. I'm going to start the show over again.
I can't. My face is frozen. I've been smiling for so long.
Yeah, I wish. Let's see here on comments. Yeah, no sound. There you go. Someone just told me that there now. Yeah, we had a sound problem the other day. I just fixed it here. I apologize. So that we can start the show all over again now, right? Thank you, Larry. Larry right here says he can hear it. Good deal. Well, we'll edit that out in the restart. So, all right, we'll recap the show quickly. You ready? Here we go. What I said was, here you can find the videos. I said that you are a really accomplished guy with multi-million-dollar deals, 3 books, and there you are. You're on screen now. I recapped the whole thing.
There you go. That's all you have to say.
Yeah, it's called live video, folks. That's what happens. So there you go. Yeah, thank you, Larry. Larry's checking and sound is working. When you're your own producer, Patrick, this is what happens from time to time. So,
do you know what? There's another word for it. I think they call it life.
It's called life. It's called live streaming. And I actually begged several times for LinkedIn to, and that's what the idea behind this, putting this card up here is there's really no place to find the videos after they run on LinkedIn. You've got to go searching my profile, which is hard. It would be great if LinkedIn put the videos in a bin on everybody's profile. We're working really hard to put some good shows together. We have some fabulous guests, and that's the tough part. So, but Larry, thank you for letting us know we had that sound issue.
Thanks,
I appreciate it. Yeah, he's a good man, that Larry. I'll tell you right now. So let me tell you something, Patrick. You know what? We have people on here that wrote a book, right? A book. Mm-hmm. You've written 3 books. I mean,
yeah, I think that automatically gets you membership into the puzzle room.
Well, I'm going to ask you first, right out of the gate, off script here from things we said we discussed. I mean, writing 3 books, the discipline that has to happen for you to write 3 books. Looking at the books on the screen here, so Perpetual Hunger, is that the first book that you wrote?
The first actually was Unlocking Yes, and this is actually the second edition. So I've written sort of 3.5 books.
Gotcha.
I wrote it, took 7 years to finish, and then I just thought, you know what, I can do a better job. And what I wanted my legacy to be was not that I have a legacy. It's just I wanted to leave good things behind. Because you don't write because you're in it for the money. Come on, it's just craziness. But what I wanted to do was I wanted to leave behind material that, if you actually went in and read the bonus round, followed by, let's say start with Perpetual Hunger, followed by the bonus round, followed by Unlocking Yes, you go sell anywhere. You can sell anywhere because what I've given you is everything from lessons in the business to business cases and how to finish out really complex negotiations.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, and negotiations is what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah, for sure.
Negotiations, obviously, a lot of mystique around it, a lot of pressure around negotiation. So let's start with, why does having a understanding of negotiation strategy really matter? Why is that important?
Well, it's a crazy thing. And, you and I have, we've negotiated in the stratospheres of the media business, and so you've seen people who have outsized egos, are pressed for time, think they're the smartest person in the room. That could be a man. That could be a man or a woman, by the way. And they think they know the customer better than they do. Quite frankly, it wasn't that many years ago, and to be honest with you, as soon as databases hit, I mean, our customers were all over us. In my particular case, dealing with, the likes of, Walmart and Woolco and, the Hudson's Bay Company, Toys R Us, on and on, Home Depot, all these guys used to go do market tours. So they actually knew us as better or greater than we did.
Yeah, I remember those. Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And they understood production too.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't like we knew more than they did. Actually, we had to learn more about them.
Right.
And they were the only ones that mattered anyway.
Yeah. So is knowing someone on the other side of a negotiation, doing that homework, that's really important.
Well, for sure it is. But the thing is, you've got an expectation gap, and the bigger the money gets, sometimes the more complex that gap gets. And if you're not in tune with your customer during a heavy duty negotiation,
right,
you're going to lose a bag of money because they're going to have you on your back foot, on your heel. They're going to be able to apply pressure that you're not going to understand. And quite frankly, let's be honest and say the guys in procurement and the guys in the buying department, guess what they spend their time doing?
Oh yeah,
Studying buying.
That's
all
it.
right.
Yeah.
So what do the sales guys do? We study selling.
Yeah.
But guess what? We should be studying buying.
Wow, you're the first person I've ever heard really make that connection. That, we are working so hard to close the sale, but we really don't spend a lot of time thinking about the back and forth of negotiation.
Well, think about what our customers are doing. They're doing everything. Okay. When we were in the media business, we kind of focused on production. We focused on delivery. If you're in the newspaper business and you worked at a big newspaper, you were delivering War and Peace every 24 hours because almost nothing was replicated, right? So they, on the other hand, were dealing with millions and millions and millions of SKUs. They were dealing with display, ambiance in their stores, store traffic, shelf velocity, moving the back of the store to the front of the store. The store is the brand. What did we do? What did we do? Well, we shrunk the classified section. That was another big move, Ed. We brought classified and retail together to speak one language. I think it was Hungarian.
Now, you know why I'm laughing, right? I was in those meetings.
I know you were. I was there too. And what's even funnier is that our guys thought they knew how profit worked. Not everybody did. The Thompson guys had it kind of worked out. The guys that I worked for, I got talking about the flyer business. And what I started to notice was that everybody was speaking a different language. And I thought, this is weird. Why is everybody doing that? And so the question I asked was, well, how are you allocating expenses against the production of flyers? Guess what I found out?
What's that?
It was like Get Smart, chaos.
Yeah.
You see,
well, I want you to know it's nice to know things don't always change because, our company works very hard building revenue for people. And, you talk about the margin that goes into an individual product within a newspaper, publications within publications. And sometimes they don't know. They put the moniker on the overall when you've got something within the paper that's a 50-60% margin. So, that's something you got to know your margins. You got to know what drives them. And it's so important. So, yeah, I think we're speaking the same language.
I actually walked away from Walmart.
From who?
Walmart.
Did you really?
Yeah. And my guys hated me. It went on for years.
Wow.
But I understand the cost structure so closely. And it was Western Canada. And I thought, you know what? If we take this deal just because somebody's come in with a lesser quality delivery, but that the Walmart people would accept it. Well, what would happen to our quality point of difference? It really didn't mean anything. So it didn't mean anything. Then what was going to happen was we were going to get attached to price contagion, which could move right across the country, regardless of how good our systems were.
Well, so on the other side of the table, those guys are using strategies and tactics, right?
Right.
I mean, how are they using those, and how are we getting prepared to be on the opposite side of the table of someone who's working with strategy and tactics?
Well, let's say that they control the theater. Okay. So when we're doing a lot of negotiations with large customers, we end up in their house.
Right. So when you say the theater, I'm not talking down anybody. You mean when the room that it happens in, how it's set up, whose house you're in, like you said, whose conference table you're sitting around. They control the theater. Got it.
They control the heat, they control the lighting, they control the ambience, what's on the walls, whether the chairs are comfortable, what part of the table you sit at, how many people you're allowed in the room. It's sometimes even questions that you can ask. So, and then what they can do is they can either sit there and say nothing, like doing the old turtle in the shell, or they can be quite animated. If they're quite animated and they say, you didn't listen.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's interesting. You mentioned the tortoise and the shell and that technique. I have found that in a tactic like that, when you've got someone like me who's just the Blarney Stone, dangerous tactic, not responding back. Dangerous tactic, not reacting. And I had to learn very quickly. Shut up. Right?
Every word you say as you're getting near the end of it, it's going to cost you zeros.
Yeah. Right.
So, you know, you've got to understand when it's time to speak. All of that work should have happened in your pre-meetings so that you understand who's going to be at the table and who defers to who. And really
go ahead. Yeah, I want to just hit you 1 second. Pre-meetings, okay? Again, I'm going to break things down into little pieces because I haven't heard people talk about pre-meetings in a long time, you know. And we had a Super Bowl down here last weekend, albeit a pretty boring one, it turned out, right? But we're calling the guy on the winning side the greatest ever, okay? And the pre-meeting is what it's all about. And I had a boss who really, I mean, we used to literally rehearse the living crap out of every presentation we were going to give, to the point where you're like, oh my God, do we have? And then you realize, whoa, we walked in the room and we were ready. You know, you called it theater, you called it, you know, the pre-meetings, the preparations, the rehearsals,
yes,
all of that stuff.
Yeah. You got to be that way. And I'll tell you why, because you have to prepare for things that you can't prepare for. And so if you're, so I would get all my notes and, you know, so if I was representing 125 newspapers and I was presenting to an account that was like 10 million bucks, there's a lot of moving pieces. And so I had to understand the economics of all of the markets that I was representing. And then I had to break that down into cost modeling. I had to know what the inner and outer limits of my cost modeling were. But also, I wanted to get a deal done that my people would execute with a lot of alacrity. In other words, they like the deal. Not everybody is ever going to like a deal across a company. Let's be fair, right? Just because you know, regional conditions are different. If you're in hilly terrain and you're trying to deliver stuff, guess what? It's awful. And if you're in really dense urban centers and you're trying to get into apartment buildings that are closed access, it's awful.
Right.
So
right.
You know, the people who have been around that kind of stuff, they get it. But the same thing exists for our customers.
Right.
It's identical.
Yeah. No, I get it. Larry says here, engagement and keeping a key eye on the pulse of the deal from the start to the finish is everything. You know. Oh
yeah, you know, really important, because as meetings move, conditions can move, and you know, what you sometimes get is you get what I call behind the firewall information coming in. No different than you mentioned the Super Bowl. So you got some guy holding stuff up behind his face and he's talking like this, but he's talking to the guy that way, you know, and nobody can get it. And then this guy does the triple sow cow. All of a sudden people are running in different directions. But that happens in negotiations, because I got to tell you, there are times, and the senior guys who know they're lousy negotiators will not allow themselves to appear at the table if they know what they're doing. Yeah. They send in people who understand how to present, but not just how to present, how to remain cool with grace under fire.
Sure. Right. Which is not always easy to do if you want something out of the deal and you're passionate about it. But I guess the point would even be calling it one to the point of you're not helpful in the room if you can't contain that. Right.
You know, I've seen guys, they come in and they vibrate. You can just see them. And that's because they've tried to digest too much information too late. Mm-hmm. It could be because they didn't sleep well, they had jet lag. There's a whole pile of things that happen, you know, working their way up to deals. But it can also be cultural. So like when you're dealing with, so when I was dealing with, you know, the likes of Toys R Us, it's like you walk in and it's, you know, you're moving your way through a very corporate setting, and you can feel it's corporate. You know, the guys at Home Depot, you know, they were a little bit more relaxed. You know, the guys at Lowe's, they were kind of fun people. You know, they really, you know, they understood their niche in the marketplace, and they wanted to be a little bit different than Home Depot.
Right.
They do it on purpose.
Yeah.
It's
No,
a
it
point
makes
of,
sense. It makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
But there are times in the marketplace, it's just like real estate, right? There are times in the marketplace where there's a buyer's market and there's a seller's market.
yeah.
And so how does that impact the buyer and seller strategy when you're in the middle of a negotiation? Someone's got the upper hand when the market swings one way or the other, correct?
Yeah. You remember everybody used to say win-win? Well,
Yeah.
we don't say win-win anymore. We go, I think I survived. No, after the Second World War, up until about the year 2000, we had a massive buildup. And so, in other words, what we had was we had a case where we had too many buyers and not enough sellers. So you had scarcity. The same model exists today for Apple. So, in other words, people will line up for a phone. Come on, it's a
Oh my gosh.
phone,
Yeah.
right? When you have and now we're dealing with other types of scarcity. We're dealing with scarcity of fuel, scarcity of food. We're dealing with all kinds of different things right now that are affecting us in ways we never expected.
Mm-hmm.
But if I could just come back to the strategy piece for a minute,
Yep.
how it plays is that in a seller's market, we as sellers controlled most of the strategy. Around the year 2000, that flipped over. Now you got too many sellers, not enough buyers. Guess who controls the strategy?
Right. Yeah.
Now what we can control is the types of content and the narrative and the cost modeling that are associated with the negotiation and how we react to their timbre, to the timbre in their voice and their emotion.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing about negotiation, right? The old thing. I've got two ears and one mouth. There are many, many times at a negotiation. Again, I mentioned, Blarney Stone kisser like me. You talk too much. You have to learn to shut the mouth and listen more. And listening is such a huge part of negotiation because, the other side of a negotiation is going to tell you what they're looking for. You just have to be keen to listen for it, hear it, pick up on tone, pick up on even body language, know and understand that a negotiation has a back and forth. But if you're not listening, you're going to miss what's coming your way.
Do you know, it's so back to the pre-meetings. Sometimes clients will say something and it just kind of slips. And I used to take a note taker with me to those meetings. And the note taker's job. So my job was to rank our questions by dollar value as associated with the negotiation. The note taker was there to catch everything, and every once in a while slip me a piece of paper saying he missed this, or she missed that. And the thing is, with strategy, by the way, when we come back to that, you have to understand the difference between things that are tactical and things that are strategic. The things that are strategic are the overarching plan, the long game. And so part of that is, and I'm one of the few authors to do it, is I've triangulated a SWOT analysis. We do a SWOT analysis on our customer, on our closest competitor, because that's what you're going to find in their key leverage points. That's where you're going to find the proposal, right?
Yeah.
And if you understand that going in ahead, you can actually say, all right, so we've done a SWOT analysis on us. This is what we think they're going to do. We may not be able to match it perfectly, but here's some really cool creative stuff that they haven't thought about yet, and we'll make you the first.
Good. Yeah. Again, you got back to that pre-planning, and I can't stress that enough. I don't know if we're seeing enough of it these days. I know we all want to be nimble, right? During the pandemic, especially, we're being told to be nimble. We're being told to, be creative, but you still got to go through the scenarios, back to the game of play. You have to figure out what the opponent's going to do in several different scenarios. If you have one play on the field, you're going to get figured out quickly.
Yeah. So you just stole the words right out of my mouth. You see, most people only have one negotiation strategy. That's all they have. And if I sit with people long enough, I can pick it off, and then I can neutralize it. Or if I watch somebody do something. So we had a customer who was what I refer to as double dipping. And what they were doing was they were coming in and negotiating with our head office people. They would take our proposal away, and then they would go visit the local market and say, all right, so here's what your head office guys did. We want to close the deal with them. How are you going to sweeten it? and the number was around 5%. Well, I figured out within about two of these grand openings for a very large advertiser. So I just called up the next set of markets because I knew all the markets are opening. I said, raise all your prices by 5%. I'm going to feign just total disgust that I've been taken out to the woodshed. They're going to come out and visit you. They're going to pressure you. You're going to give them the 5 points back, and we get back to a net neutral.
Yeah, yeah. And there you go. And it's interesting. Steve Axtell says, SWOT ourselves before negotiating. Right back to that. I mean, it is brilliant. What is right back to what you just said. I mean, if we know our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, and the threats we provide ourselves, that's the thing that, when you say SWOT yourself, I mentioned, candidly, a threat that I have is my own not listening and talking too much. You got to identify that stuff,
Do you know what's funny? Somebody mentioned it to me in my family. They said, Pat, you carry a lot of conversations. And so last year, at the beginning of last year, I'm age 64. I spent a whole year trying to develop my listening skills. And it's really weird. I had a conversation with one of my family members and they said, your logic has changed recently. And I said, what do you mean? Well, you seem to be answering questions differently. And I said, that's probably true. And they said, why? I said, because I'm not trying to think ahead of you to be smart.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm being in the present. The present is where all the action is. The reason that we study strategy, so I can name, label, describe, give you navigation for, and give you a risk components for 25 negotiation strategies. I have up to 30. Sometimes what happens is they start to move into each other. And so I know exactly what they are. So when somebody starts to do something and I feel game theory is attached to that strategy, I say, okay, Iris, okay, Bob,
right.
Here's how the strategy plays out if we stay in this channel. Now, what happens at the end is that you end up in a much better position than I do. I'm going to have to do a coin toss on whether I take the deal. And if the deal doesn't have enough meat on it and I take it back and my guys get angry about not having enough profit in it, they're not going to implement well. So what's your backup plan? What's your backup plan? And you know what their backup plan is? Al?
What is that?
Zero. Zero. What? I've done it with CEOs.
Yeah.
I sit in front of them. I say, okay, so here's what you're asking, and here's where we end up. I love the one where people, and I've had it happen to me on several occasions. They say, Pat, we want some skin in the game, and I go, all right. So what you're saying to me is, you want to borrow my money and use my money, and then decide later whether you're going to give me my money back with maybe a profit. Does that sound correct? and this is my training business, right? And they go, well, when you put it that way, I mean, well, I said, no, count me in. I love it. But there's one small attachment. And they said, well, what's that? Well, if I'm training your people, then you're going to be open to me coming in at the end of every month and you opening your books up so I can see how I have impacted your sales.
There you go.
At which point the smoke comes out the side.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they've never thought about somebody, because we've become so flippant with some of these things, like split the difference. This is terrible. This is what kids do. I'll take half your ice cream cone if you give me half your wagon. Well, we're splitting the difference. What does that mean? I laugh at the guys in the real estate business have made a mockery of this thing. That's why you see people who are really smart, when somebody says split the difference, they stop and they say, why are you offering that? The only reason that you're offering to split the difference is you already have an advantage and you know it.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that, because I don't know if, and by the way, we didn't even establish that you are in Canada, right? You're north of Toronto. And I don't know if you get the program American Pickers up by you.
Oh, I watch them all the time.
Yeah. So you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. And,
yeah. Mikey and Rob and,
I love that almost handshake, that negotiation.
Do you know what my favorite is?
What's that?
Okay. This is where Mike Wolfe goes. He does this. He goes. Let's get crazy.
Yeah.
What the hell does let's get crazy mean? All it means is I couldn't approve my price point, and I'm coming back to you saying, let's get crazy. In other words, let's all get disruptive together and take all our clothes off. And half the people he does this to, they go, oh yeah, man, I've never been crazy in my life.
Yeah.
I laugh. I actually left him a voicemail. Saying, guys, I've seen a lot of tactical moves before, but this one is, and I love what the head drop. They see, because the head drop is so important, because
we know it's reality television. We do. But I do think that, there's a point in time when they're doing that. And I know the move you're talking about. And he says it on screen. Sometimes you just got to get the deal moving. And so in that case, they're buying objects. But when you're around a table and you're trying to get the thing moving, there are certain points, like you say, there are strategies, there are tactics. Tactics are sometimes giving a few things to get a few things, or getting a few things by positioning yourself a certain way. So when you're in a negotiation like that and you're looking at tactics, using the Mike Wolf theory, if you're trying to close a multi-million-dollar deal, what are some of those tactics we should be thinking about?
Well, first of all, you want to understand what the tactics actually are communicating, because that's really important. In other words, if people are trying to do one of two things. They're either trying to close off the exits so you can't get out, or they're doing something different, and they're saying, all right, so let's be collaborative on this little piece, and we'll close that one out, and then we go on to the next little piece.
Got it.
And we agree on that, and then we get to the next little piece, and we agree on that. And then what happens is you get to the big three. So you get to quality, you get to timing, and you get to price.
Okay.
Now, when you get to the big three, what you're really in is a quality triangle, right? So if you move time and elongate it, that can have an effect on price.
Right.
It can actually say, all right, so if you don't need something for a year, if I can print it off shift at 3 o'clock in the morning,
sure. Yep.
Okay, right? Yeah. So I've actually used that myself. I call that the skinny markup. And it's where I tell people, go ahead and do things that at a time when it makes you happy, when you need to fill shifts, but I need a little bit of reward for that.
Yeah.
Right. And the last three, when you get into quality, when I used to hang out with, now I'm going to date myself, okay, so I hold my hands up. But when I used to hang out with the Kmart guys, they got me thinking about things like thread counts in children's clothing. And I said, all right, could you explain that? Because this is when Oshkosh was just kind of first entering the scene.
Sure,
and, the retailers, right? And he said, think about it, Pat. And this was like their director of marketing, director of advertising for Canada. And he says, children grow out of those little jumpsuits faster than they decay. So what we've done is we've gone back to our Chinese, Indian, and other offshore partners, and we've said, just make the thread counts lighter and we can sell them for cheaper. Wow. And they figured it out. And they did young families a favor.
Yeah. No, I remember those days. I do.
Yeah. So if you get all those pieces and you put them together, then what you get a cultural thing. So once you understand culture, so when you walk into a place like a Walmart, believe me, you're like walking into a different world. And I was one of the few guys, I was invited by the head of media for Walmart Canada to come in and represent the newspaper industry, the whole industry. Right. So we put together about a 60-slide presentation. We had 45 minutes, and we knocked that out in 45 minutes, out the door. And we were presenting in the inner sanctum, where they have the 12-foot walls with Sam saying, the customers first, and you can do it, and all the rest of the stuff. And at the end of it all, the head of media, representing the 45 marketing people, walked out and said, we really enjoyed that. And I said, that's what we do every day. Yeah. Of course, I was kidding because we worked our brains out, right? But you got to make it look like we did this because you're that important. Yeah. We were listening. We were listening to you.
Well, I mean, no one wants to sit in a negotiation, any kind of negotiation, and not feel important. And I go through the process of buying a car. If you're negotiating the purchase of a vehicle, of course, that's changing a lot right now, tremendously. And then the advantage is on the side of the consumer. But, I've bought cars over the years where it seems like the sale guy doesn't care. And then I know the whole routine. He goes to the back, spends way too long checking with his manager. Now you're disrespecting me. You're not coming to the table with a quality negotiation. I mean, the process really, nowadays, of course, I know exactly what I want. I know exactly what it costs, and there's not a lot left for that. And that of course forces someone to up the game. And that's a great example of the game's changed. Negotiations over before you walk in the door. So make it go smoothly. And I like what you said about culture too. I mean, let's talk about that for 1 second. When you're going to negotiate someone, with someone, if you don't know their culture, back to your rehearsal, back to your homework, if you don't know their culture, you're in a whole lot of hurt, right?
Oh, are you kidding?
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, just think about Canada, for instance. Okay, so on the East
Coast, about it all the time, Patrick. All the time.
You're hanging out, saying, "Hey, what's happening? What are those moose doing up there?" It's a conspiracy.
It's only 24 miles up the road, so I think about it all the time.
Their antlers. But no, if you took our two coasts and you listen to them simultaneously, you'd say there's two different things happening here. Well, there really isn't. But what there is, we had a lot of Irish people that emigrated and Scottish people that landed on the East Coast, and on the West Coast there was a lot of British people. We had a mixture of cultures. Japanese people came in, East Indian people, and so there you have that very unique blend. And culturally, you have to make accommodation for that, because if you don't, you're making a really big mistake. Like the people in New York, believe it or not, it's going to surprise you, think a little bit differently than the people from Cali.
No, I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I'm one of the Americans that I have the great pleasure of coming up, obviously, pre-pandemic and again, when post-pandemic happens, that I mentioned to you before we went on the air here, before my silent beginning, that I love coming up to Canada because of that appreciation for people for who they are. And it's just a wonderful place to do business. And, so what a great point to make, to kind of make that comparison for just the hospitality of Canada. It's interesting, Patrick. Here's something I can't share with many people to appreciate it. Yeah. I have been to a session of Parliament, but never to Congress. So look at that.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? I don't think I've been to either. I mean, I have visited our Parliament buildings, on a couple of occasions, and it's a really nice thing. And all I can say is I've done a landing in Washington, watched some guy take my golf clubs and throw them about 100 yards down the tarmac. And when I finally got down to Myrtle Beach, like I was just my bag was a bunch of broken things. Yeah.
But to my point about your Parliament, okay, when you look at Canadian Parliament, it's a lot like obviously British Parliament. Canada is in the Queen Elizabeth's. It's the government's. Formed under Queen Elizabeth, and so
the empire. We're part of the empire.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, but you see that action on the floor, bang, 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 bang. All that stuff, and then we were with a PM, a member of Parliament, and MP. Sorry, and we went up to the dining room and had lunch, and the camaraderie, the laughter, the fun, the people who are just at each other's throats. That's negotiation as well too, is my point. That when it's done, negotiation means you're going to work together towards something, and I think people forget that you work together towards a certain end to work on something together. Hi, Jeremy, thank you for joining us. Appreciate
Hey, Jeremy, Mr. Rainmaker.
Oh, is that right? Huh?
Well, he's the Rainmaker.
He said it's all about the empire. And I got another comment I'm going to bring back too. I'm finally on the other side of Canada here. But, the point being is negotiation. And then, we're going to move on to your books here in a second. But negotiation does have an outcome. And the outcome is you're hopefully going to be working together for a long time. We've all worked on contracts. We've all worked on deals. It can get pretty heated. It can get pretty tough. But when it's over, at the end of that negotiation, you've now formed a new alliance, a new team with a new destiny, and that destiny for someone who does end up working for a Walmart as a supplier. It's a life changer. And you got to work together. So really important that and great stuff. So I want to talk about your book order, because I think that's important. So you have 3 books.
Yep.
And you mentioned that Unlocking Yes was the first book. You've since revised it. You've got a second version of it now available on Amazon in the US.
Yep.
Perpetual Hunger. But then why did you name this last book that you've written The Bonus Round? What is that all about?
I'll give you 2 quickies. First of all, Perpetual Hunger. None of these books should have been written. Perpetual Hunger. I was approached by the Global Minister of Entrepreneurship and Economic Development from the United Nations, Tamer Hegazi, to write Perpetual Hunger for all of the entrepreneurs that were going to be entering the world because corporations were flattening. So game over, end on that one. I do. So that's how that happened. If you'll see the dedication, Tamer's name is there. The bonus round's kind of a funny one. During the pandemic, I think a lot of people curled up into a ball. I kind of did the opposite. I invested in my company. I built a sales and negotiation masterclass. I sat down and I started to think about what is the piece of selling that we need to really pull apart. And the part that we're pulling apart with the bonus round really has to do with pressure and risk.
Okay.
And the other part of it is I want to help really good, what I would call entry to mid-level sales professionals level up. Because, I've sold both local and I've sold at the national level. And Al, you and I know the difference. We've all been in the same meetings. And what happens is as the numbers get bigger, the pressure gets bigger. A big contract for me back in the mid-1990s was $13 million. If money doubles every 7 to 10 years, we know what that contract's worth today. My territory in those days was $35 million.
Mm-hmm.
If it doubles every 7 to 10 years, we know how big that is. I mean, I only wish, right?
Right.
But here's the thing. When you're in that kind of an environment, you have to be super creative if you want to remain relevant and add value.
Yes.
Because the last thing you want to be called, I would hate for somebody to say, Pat's a steady Eddie.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I can
No, hey, listen, I have a saying, Patrick, and that is there are some people that have 1 years of experience 30 times.
Yeah.
And there are people that have 30 years of experience. And, you always want to be that person that has 30 years of experience. Or, the quote just hit me the other day. I was looking at something on social media, and that great quote, I think it's Benjamin Franklin they attribute it to, but some people die at 25 and are buried at 75, and that's really, really important. So here's a guy like you during the pandemic. Everybody's, going, hey, I reached the end of Netflix. Got to start all over again. You're right.
Netflix? You have Netflix? We've never heard of it in Canada.
Crave or something like that. But, I want to throw something up here. You have a question from Chris Stone who says, Patrick Tinney, the living legend of all the great books you've written, which was the most fun for you to write? Thanks, Chris, for the question.
Oh, you're asking me to choose between my children. Oh, gosh, that's such a hard question. As far
I had a commercial, I'd go to it and come back, Patrick. I don't.
Yeah, I gotta say, the bonus round because it was the hardest. It was just awful, and I'll tell you why. After you've written a book on negotiation has to be the hardest topic in business to write about.
Yeah.
All right. So you know what happens when you come second in a negotiation?
What's that?
You're dead last.
Yeah.
It's a 2-horse race.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, to be able to sort of say, I got out of that what I wanted is important. But I got to tell you, in the corporate world, if you're not continually saying to everybody, I'm here, but the reason I'm here is I'm embracing positive risk. And here's the new thing that I have either discovered in research, I'd like to bring to the marketplace. I can use tools from outside of our company. I think I've discovered something about our customers they don't even know about themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you know what it is? You want to be able to give your customers an advantage for even a month. Can you imagine walking into one of the biggest fooders in the United States and saying, I can give you a 30-day advantage over everybody else in the marketplace? What would they do?
Oh, be all over it.
they would be all over you like a large kid on a smart.
Exactly right. Yeah.
You know, and it's the
Well,
thrill.
that's a great point, because I'll get to tell you, and I'm this is my big subject the last couple of weeks. We are about to hit something called pent up demand. Okay.
Yeah.
And if you don't get ready for pent up demand right now, you are going to miss that advantage. And that advantage is going to happen. I'm going to make my prediction. June, July is when the pent up demand gates start to open, because vaccines, I know you guys are a little bit behind us over the border, but you're going to catch up quickly. When that vaccine starts to hit, I mean, we're already talking about it. Oh, 10% of society in the United States is already vaccinated and things are getting better. 15 things, this is going to be the measurement. We're going to get to a point where pent up demand is going to hit. And if your business isn't ready for it, if you haven't negotiated the terms going into it, if the guy that Patrick just mentioned that says they can give you a 30-day advance, 30 days is going to be everything this summer. Trust me.
Huge.
It's just not that I don't have a college research, body behind me. You can just see it happening. I'm being challenged here by Jeremy Jacobs. Do you guys watch Schitt's Creek? Jeremy, I'm assuming you're talking about us in the U.S. We have watched it beginning to end in this household. I can tell you that. And also, I'm going to impress you, Jeremy. I also watch Letterkenny too.
My sister watches Schitt's Creek, and half of the actors on there are Canadians. So and you're back to the old guys from the Comedy Stores, and
Oh yeah, no, it's just incredible what Eugene and Dan Levy have done. And then Letterkenny, not everybody watches it, not everybody has this hockey sense of humor. But I got to tell you, right before COVID, it was amazing. I happened to I got an email from a theater in Boston that they were going to be doing a Letterkenny night at this Wilbur Theater. So I clicked on it, and then I went to the website. Letterkenny cast had sold out shows in large theaters all around the U.S. Of course, the pandemic ate it all up, and they'll come back. But I mean, just amazing. So, Jeremy, I'm going to ask you, do you watch Letterkenny? There you go. There's my challenge.
Yeah, or if not, you should.
He challenged me on Schitt's Creek. I'm challenging him on Letterkenny. So,
yeah.
Well, Patrick, you've been more than kind with your time. I don't want to let you go, though, without you telling us what you want folks to do. You mentioned you've just created a new negotiation. Is that a digital course, or is that a course that someone can call you and have you come talk to their staff, or Zoom?
You know what? I can do it digitally. It takes a little bit longer, so we have to chunk it out. But the opening isn't far, and we're all going to be doing things a little bit differently. And so I've already been talking to some of my friends and colleagues, and don't be surprised if we're doing outdoor training sessions this summer.
Oh,
I know it sounds weird, but we can social distance. We can talk a lot. Everybody brings their own food and drink, so there's no contamination of any kind. And we can put in a full day, and we can really enjoy the outdoors. What's wrong with that? Because when you think
nothing wrong with that.
One of the things that I point out to my friends in the bonus round is I used to grab my boss, Don Fisher. He used to be the president of Simmons Mattress, and I would beg him out for a lunchtime walk every day. Every day. You know what I got? I got 30 minutes of mentoring and coaching every single day, and I got to pick the brain of a president. That
is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I worked with someone down when I worked at the Atlantic City newspaper that we did that quite often, and we came up with our best ideas. First, we'd go for a walk, and then we'd go to, he was also the food critic, so we'd find these amazing small places. But Jeremy, there's my answer. No, that's your homework assignment then, Letterkenny. Not if it's not your humor, I get it, but still pretty wild show. That actually someone in the US turned me onto it. So, but yeah, that outside thing, I think that's incredible. I think you're exactly right. I think that's the thing. And you know what? I don't know how it was in Canada, but in the US, when a teacher said, let's get our chairs and go outside, that was the best day in school ever. Ever.
Oh, yeah. The kids used to just, we prayed for two things, that and hot dog day. I mean,
well, no, you got to throw one more in there. Film strip day and 16 millimeter movie day. We are dating ourselves, Patrick. We are dating ourselves. But yeah, taking your chair, going outside. But I think you're right. I think outdoor business meetings are going to make a lot of sense. And, we could sit here and make a list. But, what we're doing right now, obviously the market's been flooded with a lot of video. But I tell people all the time, if you haven't figured out how to do video better for your business by now, you're in trouble.
Yeah,
if you haven't figured out how to do an e-commerce aspect, even if you sell radishes, you're in trouble. You know, if you haven't figured out the curbside pickup is here to stay, and even home delivery, depending on where you are and what you do, you're in trouble. My daughter just moved outside of Philadelphia. She's like, Dad, I need something. I go to Amazon and my Ring doorbell, 2 hours later, someone shows up delivering what I need. That's like, whew, wow, that's incredible. That's pretty amazing, So when it comes to negotiation or bringing it full circle, I mean, the world's moving faster, right? So tell us one more thing we should do. I'm going to put your website up here. What else should we reach out to you for, Patrick?
Well, I enjoy LinkedIn. I dabble in Facebook, although I don't think I'm the right demographic, but you can find me up there. Twitter, Centroid Deals. And there's this crazy old thing called a phone.
No way.
Really no. You can pick it up and you can punch numbers. And occasionally there's a person who goes the other end and they go, hello? I can't name who it is, but I got into a back door to one of the largest consultancies, certainly in the world, but I got to the CEO here in Canada, and I just happened to call him. I said, hey, how you doing? He goes, how'd you get my number? And you got 10 minutes.
Listen, we could do a whole thing on just the fact, when is it okay to text somebody? That's a new relationship. But here's my tip of the day for people who are joining us, who are seeing two guys who are veterans of something. Do never forget about the power of a handwritten note card. I just had a person on here the other day. We're doing a 3-part series on career changes, on job searching and all that stuff. The power of a written note card today more than ever. If you don't believe me, find comedian John Mulaney's Radio City special where he talks about one line. He says, mail. I mean, that's the thing. My 30-somethings, they love getting mail. Mail's cool.
Yeah, everybody does. I mean, especially it's really funny if you've, so we're all used to all digitally putting things away, right? But there's a lot of people who just kind of like to say, all right, so I want to open something up and have it all highlighted with notes on the side saying, this is about your industry. Here are the 2 lines that I think are germane to your future.
Yes. Yeah.
And you'll get a call right away. They'll go, holy smokes, you know what? I had my head down. Yeah. And, when people know, Al, that you're looking out after them, when you're looking into their future on their behalf, on your nickel, on your dime, guess what? You got a relationship, you got a friendship.
I so believe in that. There's a great book called The Challenger Sale that reads like Melba toast. But the point that you have to be your advertisers expert, and you said this in the very beginning. You said it in the very beginning. You said we have to know more about the people we're negotiating with. We have to know more about what they're doing in their stores, how they're bringing the front of the store to the back of the store to the front. There's so much we need to learn about a customer before we sit down.
If you want some fun, call up your competitors and say, I've never dealt with this person. How did you deal with them, if you don't mind? And you'd be surprised. Sometimes they'll say, oh my God, if you get in there, make sure you're wearing X, because they like to see Y.
Yeah, so true. So true. Patrick, it has been an absolute delight. I hope you'll come back again and chat with me. I think you've got 1 or 2 subjects beyond this. We've had some great people commenting today. That's awesome. Let me put it up on the screen again. There are 3 books for you to go to Amazon and buy. First is Unlocking Yes. Make sure it is the revised edition, Perpetual Hunger. And then Patrick's it's your latest book, correct? The bonus round.
Yeah, you got it right there.
All right. Well, listen, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. Hey, stick around backstage for a second. I want to give you a proper goodbye. But for now, it's goodbye to the audience, and we'll see you again soon.
See ya.
All right. Take care. Wow. What a great guy. And it's always fun talking to somebody from the industry that I have been a part of and love so much. Hey, beginning of the show, maybe you missed it, but I was talking, you missed it because I had an audio problem, but I was putting up here where to find past episodes. So again, you can't always find the episodes on LinkedIn. Really, really difficult to find. I'm kind of hoping LinkedIn puts a place for us to deposit a repository of video on our profile soon. But until that point, YouTube's about the best place you can find it. It's just simply YouTube with my name, and you're going to find a whole load of video there. Some of the guests that show up at the video at the end here are there. Many, many more beyond that. I am here every weekday as part of this, what I'm doing. I'd love for you to be here. And actually I say weekday, midweeks usually, typically. I work very, very hard to bring you some guests that you're going to enjoy. I love hearing from you. If you've got some suggestions, by all means, reach out to me. There's the email address. Put it up there. I would love to hear from you and have you be a part of what I'm doing here on Al Getler Live. It's a passion to bring you some of the brightest business people that are out there. Not only business people, people in general, but people like Patrick who just have so much to offer. So please make sure you seek out some of the videos I've done in the past. I have a blast being here with you. I hope you have a blast being here with me. This is it for this week. I am back next Tuesday with a couple of other exciting guests. In fact, Tuesday is going to be great. Tuesday is a young lady who has got a new way of going about building some habits. She's applying it to personal fitness. It's not one of those, crazy type of routines to worry about. I think you're going to want to be here to meet Jingling. She's got some really cool things to say. With that, thank you all for being here today. My name is Al Getler. I'll see you again next week. Take care.